Welcome to the Rich Dad Real Estate Show, where we talk about the good news and bad news of real estate, hosted by yours truly, Jaren Sustar. Go down in the show notes. I got a free training come up where I'm going to teach you how to buy real estate using other people's money with the best strategy in the entire world. It's coming up, so make sure you go in the show notes and sign up today. Today, I have a special guest, one of my favorite investors in all the world. Love hanging out with him when I see him at conferences, Henry Washington. Henry's got 130 plus rental properties. He's done wholesaling. He's done fix and flips. He's a co-host on the Bigger Pockets on the Market and the Real Estate Show. He's an author of Real Estate Dealmaker and coaches people all across the world, country to be able to do real estate deals. And he's personally helped me along my journey as well. So Henry, thanks for being on the show today. I'm excited to hang out.
Hey man, thanks for having me. This is cool, man. You stepping it up now, huh?
They must have been hurting bad. They were hurting for talent.
You lost the hat and
got the collared shirt on. I'm telling you, they got
man.
me buttoned up over here, Rich Dad. It's a great brand. I
Your
love
shirt's
hanging out with
tucked
their
in,
audience.
isn't it? Your shirt's tucked in, isn't it? Yeah.
Hey, if the truth were known, I got shorts on underneath this. So I gotta stay on camera. But I love your entire real estate journey, all of it, because you've really done it all. When I hear your story, when I talk with you, but if we were to rewind it back, how'd you get into it?
I woke up one day and I was married, and that's literally how it felt, because we got married so fast. Like we met each other and knew each other for 365 days, and then we got married. So I woke up one day and I was married, and but my finances weren't grown up yet. So I had debt and bad credit, and let's just say I was financially holding my spouse back. And I was supposed to be the financial head of household. So I knew I needed to make a change. So I desperately looked for a way to, at that point, was to just make extra money. And that's how I learned about what real estate investing was just through that desperation Google search. And I don't know, man, I felt a peace with it. I felt like if all these people, these regular folks, had figured out how to do it, then I should be able to figure out how to do it too. And something just felt right with it. I can't really explain it. You just know when something feels like, all right, well, this seems like something I'm supposed to do. So I started down that path and of education. And 90 days after that Google search / panic attack, I bought my first house.
Wow. So it sounds similar to mine. It's like I remember waking up one day and I was like, dude, something's got to change. Right. But something, I think there's a lot of correlation to people I talk to have had success in real estate, but they started kind of broken behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
And I think what me and you try to do, and other folks who have had success in investing and they have brands and they're able to teach people now, is I think we try to like grab people and get their attention and say, hey, don't wait until you're in the position that Henry was or that Jaren was before you start to decide to change your life. We don't have to get to quote unquote rock bottom. Do these things now, and the climb will be a little bit easier for you.
Yeah. It'd be nice if if that's how it would work. A lot of the times people need that come to Jesus moment where they go, oh man, I got like this, something has to change, because this business is hard, dude. Like, unless you have that thing that's gonna either that you don't want to go back to, or that reason that you're doing it that's bigger than yourself, it's hard to stick to, man, because it's not easy. I still some weeks I'm like, man, why did I do this? Why am I doing this right now?
But then you're able to go back, like you said, to that foundational piece and say, all right, this is why I started it in the first place. Yep. I think I say this a lot on this show. There's a reason they call people who are successful the 1%ers. Yeah, remember why I love that. If you're not looking on YouTube, Henry's got a photo behind him that says, remember why you started. Just keep going back to the why, because it's going to be hard. And to become a 1%er, that means you got to be different than 99% of other people. And so when you do that, it's not easy. It's very uncomfortable. And there are times as your journey progresses, Will it become more comfortable? I think so. I think it's like you go and you ride a
It's like,
bike, and it's uncomfortable to ride a bike at first. Then you get it, then it becomes comfortable. But still, no matter how
yeah,
comfortable
but
you
then you
become, you're
start
putting out
navigating
fires.
rough terrain in that bike. So
Yes.
then you're still uncomfortable
Yeah,
again.
you want to go mountain biking now. You're not
Yeah.
riding around the driveway
Yeah.
with training wheels anymore. Yeah, you're exactly right. I love
Yeah.
that analogy. Did you use real estate to clean up your finances, like to get out of that bad debt, or did you do that through quote unquote a job and then you started investing in real estate after?
No, I started where I was with bad credit and no money. So the thought that buying a house was going to fix my financial problems was absurd when you look back at that. But no, the drive to want to succeed at it helped me start to clean it up. So a lot happened in that 90 days from when I had that Google search panic attack to when I bought that first property. You know, the laundry list of things that happened were first and foremost, I had to figure out how to do it. So I surrounded myself with as many investors as I could in my local market. Like, I didn't even know meetups were a thing. Like, I was just Google searching like real estate investors in Northwest Arkansas. And then if there was a meeting or something, I would just go. Like, I didn't even know, like, if I had a membership, I didn't care. Like, I just showed up. Like, I'll figure it out. I was just inserting myself around as many investors as I could. Because I wanted to see who was doing it and how they were doing it. And I just figured if I was around them, I would learn something. The next thing I did was we started to save 10% of our income, just because I figured at some point I'll need some money. And so, like, I'll just save 10% of my income. And if I don't have enough money to pay my bills, well, then I'll figure it out. Right. Like, but we just started to save and pay ourselves first, which I had never done in my life. But the drive to want to be successful just forced me to say, all right, we're going to start saving. We'll figure out the rest. I'm going to get around these investors. And then I had to start cleaning up my credit. And so I hired like a credit repair company, like a virtual company who helped me to clean up my credit. And I hired somebody to kind of talk to what was going on. And it's funny, I probably didn't need to hire that person because they were just like, you know what you should do to fix your credit? And I was like, no, like, let's hear it. And they were like, you see this stuff here that these balances that are bringing your score down that have been reported to collections? And, yeah. Like, you should pay them.
Well, I was going to ask you, are these guys legit?
You should pay those people. And then your score will just go up. This is crazy.
It's $2,500 for some common sense education, baby. Well, I always wondered, I'm like, are these credit repair folks? What's the
so
scoop here?
some of them are completely legit and some of them are scammy, and you got to kind of do your research. The virtual company I used to help me, they just kind of helped me like file disputes on some stuff. And that was helpful. It did raise my score a little bit, but the thing that raised my score the most was just paying off some of the bad debt. You know, I tell folks like, that's the best credit repair hack I've ever seen, was just pay what you owe. Now, I get it. Some people can't because medical debt's crazy, right? And, you know, if you have some crazy astronomical debt that you can't pay off, then yeah, you have to go search for some way to try to figure that out. Maybe it's a payment plan, maybe it's something else. But for me, and I think for a lot of people, we all have like some stuff on our credit that like for me, I had two things specifically that I knew was on my credit report that I was just on my high horse about it. I did not feel like they should have charged me for it. I felt like they were in the wrong, and I wasn't gonna pay them for this because they didn't charge me right, and yada yada yada. But it was stopping me from getting to my wealth or financial freedom, and so I had to just bite the bullet and say, you know what, I'm just gonna pay these people even though they're wrong, because my mom used to say, you can be dead right. Like, you can be right, but it still can impact you negatively. So,
how many people do you think live with that mentality overall? I mean, I feel like it's something that the majority of people fight, is they allow other people's actions toward them, which can be terrible at times.
Yeah.
But they let it just literally suppress everything that they could be if they would just forgive or move on.
Yeah, swallowing your pride is tough sometimes, man. I mean, that's what it was. I was prideful about that these people did me wrong with these charges. I mean, it's funny because one of those charges was a landlord charge. A landlord charged me to replace the carpet in a unit that I was like not the carpet wasn't replaced right before I moved in. Like I was like the fifth or sixth tenant who lived there, and then I got stuck with the bill for replacing the entire carpet. And I didn't really do anything to it, so I felt some type of way about it. Now it's funny that I'm a landlord and I don't do that to tenants. By the way,
like, do the right. That's how you do not do the right thing.
Right.
You do not follow the lead.
And so I was like, I ain't paying that, and it was just negatively impacting me to the point where it was hurting me to be able to get loans.
That's frustrating. Hey, that guy's got what's coming to him, and I know that you're not that type of landlord. I've heard you talk about how you help your tenants, and we can break some of that down in a little bit. Yep. It's interesting when you talk about paying down debt. We had $115K that we did, and we knocked it out. It took us about 5 years.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fun, but our secret was the same thing. Take the debt that you have and pay it off. And we use the debt snowball. So we started with the smallest debt, got it paid off, and the next one.
Yep.
And we were able to eventually get it knocking out. I tell people, if you are trying to build wealth with a lot of debt, consumer debt, and I mean, you will talk about good debt. There's really good debt, but bad consumer debt, I equate it to quicksand. It's like you keep trying to trudge, you're trying to climb out, and it just keeps grabbing you and pulling you back in.
Maybe that's what they meant in all the cartoons, because I've always felt like when you were a kid, like quicksand was going to be this thing you had to deal with at some point in your life.
You were dying from quicksand.
But I've never ever seen quicksand. Like it's never happened. So I was like, that's a lot of preparation for some. But it was a metaphor for debt. Oh, see,
that's it. Bro, we need to get a T-shirt made ASAP.
That's it.
Hey, I'm claiming rights to that, Henry. Do not don't take my idea. So what was that first deal like? What'd you do? Did you buy a rental? Did you flip? Wholesale? How'd you get into it?
Yeah, it was a rental property, man. I'll tell the story. I'll try to tell it as briefly as possible. But the way I found that first deal was also one of the things I did in that 90-day period was I'm just a firm believer in this world, you get what you give, right? Like, I don't care if you believe in Jesus or the universe or whatever, like the principles are very similar. It is you get what you put out into the world, right? Like, so if you want money, then find a way to give somebody some money or give some organization some money. And it's magic how it just seems that, you get what you need when you need it. And so I was like, I'm just going to tell people I'm a real estate investor. I want the things real estate investors have. And so I'm going to put that out into the world. If I don't believe I'm going to do it, then nobody else should believe me. So I was just putting it out there. And so that's literally how my first deal came to me. My buddy called me and asked me to buy his house. He said he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He needed to sell his house in 30 days. He had let somebody move into it and they were paying the mortgage. They were supposed to fix their credit so they could buy the house by this particular date. He needed to sell the house so that he could use that money to buy another piece of property. And the time had come for him to buy that piece of property. And he was like, man, I got to get this money fast. And so he was like, dude, if you can close on my house in 30 days, I'll sell it to you for 116. I know it's worth 165, 170, but I don't care because 116 gives me the exact amount of money I need. Can you buy it? And I was like, man, yeah, I can buy it. I didn't know how to buy it. And so he was like, all right, well, what do we do? I literally had to Google, how do I buy a house without a real estate agent, and follow like the steps for putting it under contract, because I didn't know what that meant. I had to download a contract off the internet. We signed this vague contract I downloaded off the internet, which is terrible legal advice, but great action steps. Like,
you made it happen.
right. We signed this contract, and then I was like, all right, man, I need some money because I only had $1,000 in my savings account. And so I went to a bank and I did a very thorough analysis of which bank I should go to. And that analysis was that the bank was close to my office. So I walked into the bank closest to my office, and it just happened to be a community bank. And I just happened to talk to the commercial lender because he was standing in the lobby.
Wow.
And he looked at my contract and said, bro, this is a great deal and we would love to finance it. And he hadn't pulled my credit or anything. And so he talked to me about it. He was like, "We'll lend it to you. We're going to lend you 85%, and we'll lend you the rehab money, 100% of that, if you have a 15% down payment," which was like 17 grand or something, which I did not have, but I didn't tell him that. But I walked into that bank needing 116,000, and I walked out needing only about 15 grand. So it was a win. It was a win in my book. So I had to go find the down payment.
That's a huge win. Knocking that down by $100,000.
Yeah.
We can make that happen. We'll talk about it after the break. We'll be right back with Henry Washington.
Are you worried about your financial security in these unprecedented times? If you are, the next minute could profoundly impact your financial security. Imagine waking up to find the economy has plunged and your portfolio has plummeted 30 to 45%, while banks are in turmoil, holding your money hostage while waiting for FDIC intervention. Where would you turn? For many, this may sound like fiction, but it's a stark reality. For those that have money on the line, recently, America's awoke to both the NASDAQ and the Dow, plummeting over 1,100 points each and triggering a frenzy of sell-offs. History shows us how a single event can crash the market, like the dot-com bubble of 1999, the subprime mortgage crisis of 2008, and the pandemic of 2020. But today, we're facing multiple bubbles: commercial real estate, stock, bonds, and banks. Combined with the relentless inflation, the threat of global recession, the specters of war, and you have the perfect storm. The consequences could be catastrophic, plunging us into unprecedented crisis. America is sliding in the age of discord, with trust in institutions collapsing and the democratic norms unraveling. The quality of life for Americans has declined. Wealth is concentrated among the rich, while the median American family income stagnates, creating a dangerously top-heavy social pyramid. Moreover, hostile countries like Russia, China, and Iran are working to destroy the U.S. dollar. Gold is a no-matter-what store of wealth that you need. That's why Robert has been such an advocate of gold, and he trusts Allegiance Gold. Allegiance Gold is ready to help you incorporate physical gold as part of your portfolio and protect it against economic uncertainty. Visit protectwithrobert.com today to learn how you can qualify for up to $5,000 in free silver with a qualifying investment. Or give them a call at 844-3-ROBERT. Remember to mention Robert and Kim sent you when you contact Allegiance Gold. Secure your IRA or 401k today with Allegiance Gold. Visit protectwithrobert.com or call 844-3-ROBERT.
Welcome back to the Rich Dad Real Estate Show, where we're talking about the good news and bad news of real estate with Henry Washington. So, Henry, you're working on that first deal.
Yeah.
You got to buy it for 116 grand. You go into the bank. The banker doesn't even look at your personal finances or credit. He just looks at the deal, what it could cash flow, what you're buying it for, what it could be worth. And he's like, bro, we're going to loan you, 80% of that. You got to go find the other 85%. You got to go find the $16,000 down payment. How'd you go about that?
Yeah, and to clear things up, they eventually did run my credit, but he knew that it was a good situation for the bank when he saw how good the deal was, that he was like, yeah, man, we want you to bring this here. And so, yeah, I didn't have that money, obviously. And so I leaned on my network of investors that I'd been building relationships with since I started the journey of trying to learn how to do this. And I went to that real estate investment group and I was like, how the heck do y'all find the down payments for these? One of the guys kind of brainstormed with me a bunch of different ways to try to get access to capital, none of which were going to work. And then he ended up talking to me about borrowing from my 401k. And I didn't know what that meant. I thought you could only cash it out, but you can borrow against your 401k. And your employer typically takes the payments out of your paycheck directly and with interest, but the interest is yours because it's your money to begin with. So you're paying yourself back with interest. And he was like, and if you rent the house out and it cash flows, technically your cash flow is paying back the money to you. So your tenants are essentially paying back that loan. And I was like, boom. That's what we're going to do then. Let's do it. I just got to go find a 401k because I didn't have one. He thought I did, but I did not because I was not smart enough to invest in one when I was. So we borrowed it from my wife's 401k and we bought the property. We raised the rents, kept the same tenant in it because he wanted to stay there, put the rents at market rents. And we did just that. The property paid for itself and paid us some cash flow and paid back the loan that we used to borrow it with the down payment. And then that lender contacted me and asked me to take out a line of credit on the equity in that property. And I didn't know what that meant either. So he had to explain to me what a line of credit was. I applied, got the line of credit. And then now I had access to about 20 to 25 grand or something like that on a line of credit that I could use. And he basically told me, he was like, hey, so now we want you to bring us more deals like this. If you bring us more deals like this, we'll fund it 85%. Again, we'll give you 100% of the renovation. And then you can use this line of credit as your 15% down payment. So that way you don't have to spend any of your money. And then if you sell that house, like you flip it, then you pay off the line of credit with the proceeds. Or if you rent that house out, you can refinance it and pull the cash out and pay off the line of credit. So he was explaining to me the BRRRR method before there was a fancy term for it. Like he was like walking me through how to leverage other people's money to grow my real estate business, because he really, I mean, I brought him a house for 116 that was worth 160. He knew in his head, like, if Henry doesn't make his payments, we'll just take the house back. Then we'll go sell the house ourselves. And even if we don't sell it for 160, if we sell it for 130, 140, we'll make way more money doing that than we will on the interest payments he's making. Like, it was a safe investment for a community bank. And so he wanted me to keep bringing them. So he helped me form this like banking partnership where I brought them good deals, they financed them, and we grew together.
There is nothing, in my opinion, that competes with buying undervalued real estate.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
And I don't care what asset class you're in. I had Devon on, Devon Kennard last night.
Yeah.
He literally, I'm pretty sure Devon mentioned it the same way. He either said that's the sauce or that's the game. It's like everybody that I interview and talk to, and the way I invest, whether you're doing single family, self-storage. I talked with AJ a couple weeks ago. AJ's doing it with self-storage, apartment complexes. Warren Buffett buying businesses and stocks. The key, everybody listening to this, is go find undervalued properties. Properties that are worth this much, but you're able to get them at a huge discount. Then you can force appreciate them, make them more valuable through rehab, and then you either keep them in your portfolio or you sell them. It's not rocket science. You got to learn the blueprint of how to do that.
Right.
But that is the outline.
People think that, that it's just hard or impossible to do, right? But no one thinks about literally with everything in the world, cars, chairs, furniture, like look around your house. Everything in there was bought undervalued by somebody and then sold at a higher price.
Yeah.
You just have to figure out how not to be the end consumer. You have to figure out how to be the wholesaler, the distributor of that of that item, right? Like, yeah, cars are expensive, but car dealers get them at a discount, right? Like somebody buys something at a discount and sells it for a profit. You got to figure out how to be on the side that's buying at the discount.
I love that. That's the basis of business.
That's it.
You hit the nail on the head. Doesn't matter. You're right. I can literally look around this room and everything is the same thing that we do in real estate. Just maybe it's a different product, or maybe there's not as good of margins, or maybe there's better margins, but somebody niches down on it.
Yep.
And, then you get into the conversation of, okay, well, why wouldn't I go just, buy furniture and resell it? Well, I would say, well, now you can, yes, and create cash. But what you can't do is hold on to that piece of furniture for a long period of time while a tenant pays off the
and
mortgage.
You can't leverage it to go buy more.
And you can't leverage it to go buy more. So then if somebody wants to get smart and try to say, well, I can just do that, it's easier. You can. That's flipping. You make some money. But if you want to build wealth, you got to buy assets.
You got to hold on to them.
You got to hold on to them. And you've done it 130 plus times.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's hard. It's not easy. But guess what? Henry has gone out and done it 130 plus times. You heard other people on the show. You can do it if you take the time to learn. How important to you is networking? Because I heard you talk about it, and then I hear everybody talk about it. I said this last week. There are two things that I hear from wealthy people that made them wealthy. Number one is networking, just forcing themselves into rooms that maybe they weren't even invited to, but they found their way in it. And the second is, sometimes you got to. And then the second is delayed gratification. Those seem to be the two main ingredients for successful people.
No, that's truth, man. And I think it's, who you choose to surround yourself with lets you know what's possible. So if you don't think you can do something, you probably can't, if that's the mindset that you have. But I would urge you to go find people who are doing it and see if you can't put yourself around them in some way. Maybe it's that you're going to, do some work for one of them. Maybe it's that you're going to, I don't care if you're going to babysit for them, right? Like if you can put yourself around 2 to 4 people who are doing the thing that you think you can't do or that's impossible, I promise you, after 6 months to a year, it won't seem like you can't do it anymore. It'll be more like, why aren't I doing this yet? I interviewed a guy on a podcast once. His very first real estate deal was like a 200 unit apartment building. And we asked him, I was like, that, most people don't do that. Most people start with a single family and then they buy a duplex and then they buy like a, 6, 8, 12 unit. And then they sell all that and they go buy an apartment building, right? Like 1031 into something bigger. Like people step their way up into multifamily. Like, why did you start there? And he basically said, like my favorite quote from like a comedian, Louis C.K. He said, I didn't know I couldn't do that. Like he was like, every one of my friends buys multifamily apartments. He's like, that's just who I'm around all the time.
Wow.
And so I never had that limiting belief that it's not something I could do. Like I see everyone do it. So that's just what I did. Right. And so your network truly does show you what's possible. I think the challenging part for people is people don't know how to network. I think people just expect to show up someplace and then magic happens and you learn something. And that's not how it works, right? No. Like when we're telling people, hey, you need to go grow your network or you need to be networking, there's a formula for you to be able to do it, right? And so the way I tell people to network is be relentlessly consistent in your networking. And what I mean by that is like when I went down this journey after my panic attack, I wanted to find people who did this. And so I just found real estate meetups and I went to all of them. I went to all of them every month, no matter what. And most people don't do that. Most people, they find a real estate group and maybe they go for the first couple of months. And then the third month, life starts happening. You got this thing and you want to do this other thing. And then you fall off for a couple of months and then you show back up a few months later. Like you're not building a solid network that way, right? You build a solid network by consistently being in the room every time. Be diligent about where you sit. Go sit in the front of the room, front and center. People go to networking events and they go sit in the back. You know who sits in the back? Everybody else who don't want to do nothing. You know who sits in the front? People who ain't afraid to be called on or be involved in the conversation. So typically those people are doers. They're typically the people who are getting deals done. Go put yourself in proximity to the people who are doing the work. If you go sit in the front of the room every time and you're there consistently, people who are successful will automatically think you're successful because you're moving and shaking like a successful person does. And when they find out that you haven't done a deal yet or that you're just getting started, you know what they're going to want to do? Bro, come on, let me show you how we do this, right? Come on, let me help you. You build that network. You got to act like people who are successful. Don't just go sit in the back of the room and go to 1 or 2 meetups every here or there. You got to go every time. And then when you're networking, people think that the secret sauce to networking is just being in the room, but that's not the secret sauce to networking. Networking is not about what you get from networking. Networking is about what you give. Stop thinking about what it is that I need when I go to a networking event. We need to take human nature and use it to our advantage. So when you network, you go to a networking meeting and write this down before you go 5 times. I will find somebody to be of service to. I will find somebody to be of service to. Just get your brain ready and listening for what you can help somebody with. Maybe it's something related to real estate. Maybe it has nothing to do with real estate, right? But if you write that down and you turn your brain on to start helping you listen for who can I help, when you're having conversations or you're overhearing conversation in networking events, you'll start to figure out how you can help. Maybe you'll overhear somebody saying, I'm struggling with my website. And you might know somebody who's great with websites. you don't even have to be the person to provide the help to be of service. You can just say, hey, I heard you're struggling with your website. My buddy is great with websites. Do you mind if I just make a quick email introduction? Boom, do an email introduction. That person is going to remember you over everybody else in the room because you tried to help them and you didn't ask for anything in return. Whether they end up using your friend or not, they'll remember you for trying to help. Maybe you'll hear somebody say they need a babysitter and your wife can do it or you can do it. Maybe you'll hear somebody go to the people who are hosting the meetup and ask them, can you help them? Can you take names and emails out the door? They always need help. Find a way to be of service. When you start helping people, you stand out, people remember you and they'll want to work with you. They'll want to help you be successful. But B, when you give, you get. Like, put that in the universe to work for you by being a giver. And then you'll start to get these great relationships and resources. People will want to help you because they feel like they owe you for all the help you're providing.
The key to living a blessed life is blessing others. I truly believe that. And everything you said could not be more true when it comes to networking, and it will open up doors. And all you need is one big connection. You don't have to have 5, 6, 7 people on your team. You meet that one person and they can completely alter your life in a positive way. I want to talk about your portfolio, where you are today, how you got to where you are today, and what your operation looks like, more from a tactical standpoint of, how you're buying deals, how you figure out what to buy them at, and how you decide if you're going to wholesale them or flip them in rental. So we started with that one. We're at 130 today. How'd we get there?
Yeah. So I learned early on that there's 2 problems to wanting to build a real estate business. The first problem is you got to have something to buy at a discount. And the second problem is you got to have money to buy that thing. Right. And that bank basically told me, we're going to give you the money. So you got to go figure out how to find something to buy at a discount. And so I said, okay, if I can figure out how to find more deals like this, then I can build my business because I have the money already. And so, the money problem was solved, need to solve the deal problem. So I started to research who in real estate is great at finding deals so I could be around them. And that's when I learned that's what wholesalers do. They do all this net marketing and then they get these deals and then they assign them. Well, I said, I don't want to wholesale. I just want the deals for me. But if I can operate like a wholesaler, I can go find those deals. I can take the ones I want and then give the rest to somebody else. And so I started to shape my business like a wholesaler. I started to study what are all the marketing tactics that they use. And then I figured out what's the marketing strategy that I could use that I could afford to fund with my money or my time. And that I was comfortable enough doing that I could do it consistently. Because I think that's where people make a lot of mistake. Either they don't fund a strategy appropriately, or it's just too uncomfortable for them to stick with it.
Yeah, that's I think that's spot on. And I think when you go to scaling there's a big learning curve too. When you come to implementing, you mentioned wanting to set your business up like a wholesaler. Well, to do that, you've got to learn, okay, here's how I build my list of potential sellers. All right. So now I know who I may target, which may be, pre-foreclosure homes or people who haven't paid taxes or recently divorced folks or an estate sale. So you got all these people who could potentially may be hot sellers based on their situation. That's great. I would say that's pretty easy to narrow down. If a quick Google search can help you. Well, now you've got to figure out, okay, how am I going to get a hold of these people? How am I going to do it effectively? And how am I going to do it with the least amount of money to keep my costs per lead down? And so then you got to figure out, all right, here's how I have the conversation on the phone. If I'm calling, here's what my mailers need to look like. And there's a whole method to it, but you've knocked it down. And so what's that look like? What that process look like to figure it out? And then just to start replicating things that work while also still having to change as the market does over time.
Yeah. So for me, you're right. I had to figure out that list. And the way I figured out the list when I was starting was as I was researching wholesalers. So I started listening to every podcast I could find. I would literally look through all the real estate podcasts that were popular. And then I would search through their episode lists and look for the episodes with wholesalers and just listen to them. And as they were talking about like who they would market to, I would write it down. So I'd literally had this running list of like, here's who this person, here's who they're marketing to, here's who they're marketing to. And as I started to see this list, I would look at the list and I would see what strategy that I see multiple times from wholesalers that they're targeting. So a lot of them were targeting absentee owners, right? And that's kind of the thing that stood out was absentee owners. And so I said, perfect. That's exactly who I do not want to target, right? I did not want to do what everybody else was doing because I didn't want to compete with people who were so much more experienced than me. And so I took that list and I said, what's the one or two things on this list that I don't see very much, right? And that's who I want to market to, because then hopefully I would have less competition from people who are more seasoned by hitting those lesser known lists. And so that's how I would tell people to go ahead and research. Like, don't reinvent the wheel. People are marketing to people who on lists that work. So go listen to who everybody's marketing to, but then try to pick one that the sea isn't filled with people who are fishing in that pond. So I did that. I picked a list that was I felt would work in my market and that wasn't heavily marketed to, and that's who we started to market to at the time. I think it was senior owners, owner occupied,
which is one of my favorite people to buy from.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know what percent of my portfolio has been purchased from those, but it's been a very high amount, and they're great to work with because they need the help.
They need the help. They want the help. They want to help you, and they tell the best stories.
Oh yeah, when you go to those meetings,
yeah,
you might as well set aside a couple hours.
Go ahead and sit down for a minute, my man.
If you're near lunchtime, you're probably going to be eating with them. So just relax. Yes. But it's amazing. You take the time, you get to know these people, and that's a whole different conversation on how to have those conversations. What you're saying, but what have been some of your favorite channels of marketing? I know we were at a conference together in Denver earlier this year, and we've actually switched our business model to what you just said, to where we act like wholesalers now. I generally hadn't done that much marketing because I just had so much deal flow from organic lead, from networking and all. But now we've got it set up, the different channels. What do you like? What's worked for you? And what would you tell folks who are just getting started is a good place to focus from a marketing standpoint?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I do, and then I'll answer that question. So I mostly do direct mail, and I have a website with a Google AdWords campaign running to it, and I do radio ads. Those three things bring me the most of my deals. All three things are essentially on autopilot, so that we have consistent lead flow. Now, for someone new who's trying to pick a strategy, in my opinion, you need to do some research first. Too many times people just pick a strategy because they heard it and they want to get started. But in order for any marketing strategy to work, and by the way, every single one works. If you want to do direct mail, it works. If you want to do cold calling, it works. If you want to knock on doors, it works. If you want to make on-market offers on the MLS, it works. Agent outreach, it works. So you have to figure out, since you already know it works, there's literally data on every single marketing. You can Google it and figure out how much of it you need to do and for how long before it produces a result, right? So you have to do some research. You have to pick a strategy that you can afford to pay for long enough for it to work. Right. And when I say afford to pay for, it doesn't have to be with your money. But people forget, if you're not going to spend money on a marketing strategy, you can do it for free. Making offers on the MLS is free, but it's going to cost you time. And you have to have enough time to give that strategy, to give it to work and pay off. You have to be able to make enough offers in volume. If you want to do a free strategy like make offers on the MLS and you're making one offer a week, it's going to be a while before you get a deal. Right? Yep. You have to do it in volume, and that's going to take time, and it's going to take an agent's time. And so like, you've got to calculate, do I have enough time to give this strategy to work? So do your budget. How much time or how much money do I have to devote to my marketing strategy? And then pick the strategy that you know your budget will afford to pay for long enough for it to work, and that you're comfortable enough in the uncomfortability of that strategy, because they're all uncomfortable. Making offers on the MLS sounds easy until you realize you got to make offers at $50, $60, $70, $80, $90, $100, $150,000 less than what they're listed at. That's uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable for you to tell your agent to do it, and it's uncomfortable for your agent to make those offers. And so if you can't deal with that level of uncomfortability, or you can't talk your agent into dealing with that level of uncomfortability, that's probably not the strategy for you, right? Like, I don't door knock. Like, I hate it. I don't want to knock on somebody's door. I don't want to have a conversation like that in the middle of the day. Like, it's uncomfortable for me. And I know myself well enough to know that I'm not going to get comfortable with it. So I don't do it, right? I don't like cold calling, so I don't do it. I'll hire a third-party service to do it for me, right? Like, you have to know yourself well enough to know what you're going to stick with. So for me, I picked direct mail, not because I thought it was going to be this rock star strategy, but because it was the most uncomfortable strategy that I felt like I could be comfortable with. Because I know the people are going to be calling me. And if they're calling me because they want to talk to me. And I'm okay having those conversations. Even if you're calling me because you want to curse me out, at least you're calling me, right?
Yeah.
So I was comfortable with that strategy and I could afford to fund it. So that's how I tell people how to figure out what strategy works for you. Don't just do mail because I said it works for me, right? Do a strategy that you feel like because some people are great on the phone. Like they want, and they like cold calling. Maybe they got a sales job. Maybe you should be cold calling. Like, don't do mail if you got that skill set. You know what I mean? Like, pick the one that's going to fit your budget and your level of uncomfortability.
That's spot on. I think it's very important at the beginning for both of those, especially budget. I think folks see what other people are doing, they hear what other people are doing, and they automatically think they got to jump in and go do all of them.
Yeah.
Like for
Just
years,
pick one.
dude, for years I didn't spend money on marketing. I did what's called organic through networking. I would drive for dollars. I would get on wholesalers lists, which I still am, and I have agents doing outreach for me. And then I've got so many deals just from posting on Facebook. My personal
man, no
Facebook.
one
Not
does
my big
that.
account. I'm not talking about the popular account. I'm talking about Jaren's personal Facebook page. Hey guys, I'm buying properties in the area. These are the criteria. Send them
No
over.
one does that. It baffles me.
It's crazy. I think you said this earlier.
Yeah.
Let everybody know that you invest in real estate. Deals will start coming in. And then as you understand the game, you've got a couple deals under your belt, you're ready to scale, you've got funding in place. Then we can say, okay, what marketing channels can we put into place to increase that deal flow while also staying in the budget that we need? And if you do that, you can really, really, really scale quickly.
Right.
Depending on what your journey. And I had Chad Carson on not long ago. Chad's not interested in doing that.
No, Chad don't want to do none of that.
And you may not. You don't have to be. And you're not a bad person if you don't want to scale up. But if you do, there's avenues to do it. And it doesn't have to break the bank, and it doesn't have to be you sitting on the phone. Dude, I'm not sitting on the phone cold calling 40 hours a week. It's not going to happen.
Not my thing.
I will call when I find a target property that I'm interested in, but I'm not picking up and calling always. It's just not going to happen. And that's okay. So, Henry, where can everybody find you, man?
Best place to find me is on Instagram. I'm at the Henry Washington on Instagram, or just go straight to my website, www.henrywashington.com.
Awesome. Henry, thank you for being on the show today, man. Always love hanging out with you. Good luck and keep up the good work.
Man, I appreciate you, man. You're a rock star.
Thank you for tuning in to the Rich Dad Real Estate Show today, where we talk about the good news and bad news of real estate with my buddy Henry Washington. Look, we got limited spots coming up for our Burr Secrets webinar. We're going to teach you how to buy real estate using other people's money. We put a link down in the show notes. Make sure you sign up ASAP. The platform can only hold so many folks. And so if you want to get in there, go sign up today. And I look forward to hanging out with you, and I'll see you next week.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.